Hello everyone, my name is Tegan Fries, and this is How to Crochet for Beginners, Tips and Tricks to Getting Started. What are we going to cover in this video? Well, we're going to cover supplies you need, the ways to start a project, and beginner projects. For step 1, these are the supplies you need to start. First, and the most important thing you're going to need is yarn. You're going to want to pay attention to the weight, length, fiber count, and fiber type that's going to be listed on the wrapping that's going to be covering your yarn. Now, you're going to want to pay attention to the weight because that is going to determine the size hook you use. You're going to want to pay attention to the length because when beginning a pattern, it should give you an estimate of how much length of yarn you're going to need, and that's going to tell you how many things of yarn you're going to need to buy. And you're going to want to pay attention to your fiber count and your fiber type. These are going to determine how you wash your projects. Things like acrylic can often be put on tumble, like a low tumble, but things like cotton and wool, you're probably going to have to hand wash to prevent shrinkage. Next, you're going to need hooks. The 4 that I think everyone pretty much needs for some basic projects, especially a beginner, are a 4mm, 5mm, 5.5mm, and a 6mm, but you can absolutely buy a starter kit that has a range of hook sizes in it for pretty cheap at your local Joann's, Marshall's, Michael's, or like a Hobby Lobby. You're also going to need a yarn needle and a threading tool. These are going to be large-eyed blunt needles, and you're going to want that specific looking threading tool because it's going to be easier to get around the thicker size of your yarn. We are going to need these so that you can thread in the ends and color changes within your project. This is going to help prevent your project falling apart later with use. Step 2. There are 2 ways you can start a project. First, you can do a slip knot. This is mostly used for linear projects. Things like your blankets, your scarves are going to mostly start with a slip knot. Then you have your magic ring, which is going to be used for things that are working inside outward, things like your granny squares and some of your hats. It's important to figure out which of these starts you feel more comfortable with, because then you can pick a good starting project. You can always work on other projects that start differently, but it's important to figure out what you're most comfortable with. Step 3, pick a project. These, in my opinion, are some really good starter projects. You have scarves, granny squares, and baby blankets. These are great because they're extremely repetitive. It'll help you get down your tension and the stitches that they're repeating over and over. Things like mosaic crochet, I wouldn't suggest for beginners because they switch back and forth between stitch styles and different stitches, and even sometimes use a creative stitch, which is normally like a combination of different types of stitches. And those types of things are more complicated and harder to pay attention to. So as a beginner, I would recommend starting with something that's a little more repetitive. I also recommend checking out YouTube. YouTube is how I learned how to crochet. I think it's a great tool for people learning. I definitely recommend you check it out, see if you find a pattern you enjoy, because it's going to give you that personal touch to learning how to crochet, because you're going to have a video basically guiding you step by step. And that's the end of this project. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, make sure to try everything. Don't be afraid to give crochet a try. And then I went ahead and I included the references for all of the photos I used.